Hello and welcome back. And today we're going to be discussing emotional intelligence in the workplace. Any organization, any group, any team, emotional intelligence is going to play a great role, an important role in the culture of that organization, that workplace. We'll be discussing that in this video. So as we look at organizational structure in terms of emotional intelligence, we really want to be talking about the culture and the leadership, internal communication, crisis management. All these things are going to factor into that organization, workplace environment that is so important, and how emotional intelligence plays into those is exactly what we'll be covering right now. Inevitably, any organization, any team, when you're working together on a regular basis, there's going to be moments of conflict. And when the people within that organization have high degrees of emotional intelligence, then those conflicts can get easily resolved, or easily might not be the correct word, but they get resolved, and collaboration can then really, truly flourish. When emotional intelligence is lacking, then those conflicts tend to fester. It's like an infection that begins to spread in a body, right? That cancer spreads. All those medical kind of analogies for the body are very appropriate for what happens within any organizational structure. So the emotional intelligence within the body is crucial for not letting those infections and cancers spread. So trying to figure out how to bring that up amongst your workforce, amongst your people, is really where excellent leadership begins to come into play. When leaders have emotional intelligence, they bring that to the table, and they can begin to see empathy and understanding from all sides. And it will play into how they communicate. It plays into their own internal strength and their own ability to manage their own emotions. And when they are in control of themselves, that helps them come across as being a strong leader. So it's crucial for a leader to be able to have that emotional intelligence, that skill set. Again, self-regulation, self-awareness, empathy, all those things that we've talked about in some of the other videos. You know, when my wife she was a school teacher, and she grew up in the district that she ended up going to work for. She spent most of her life either as a student, coach, or teacher within this school system. It was near and dear to her heart, right? It was really, in her own mind, like a second family. In many districts across the country, oftentimes people who go through school systems come back and work in that very same school system they grew up with. There's no difference in this one. Well, there was a lot going on. This is late like 2018, 19, culturally, not just within our city, but nationally, if you guys can think back to that time. And the leadership in this district was not good. There was no emotional intelligence. He put himself on one side only and was driven totally by trying to be viewed as a mover and a shaker in some real current, highly controversial, politically driven areas. And this was creating a lot of conflict, a lot of staff, a lot of administrators, a lot of families were getting quite upset. It was a toxic environment. This is the exact opposite of somebody who has emotional intelligence, who can then see all sides, take some of those important issues that were coming up and bringing people together to solve them. That was severely lacking, and it became a really quite toxic and well, in my view, kind of an emotionally harmful situation. So what was lacking in my wife's school district, and it was a district my kids went through, was structurally this emotional intelligence being permeating through the entire culture of the community, right? So there wasn't enough of it in leadership at all the school buildings level, certainly wasn't being taught or encouraged or showing how with students. And because it was lacking throughout the system, when the leadership was not exhibiting it and it wasn't being worked on in the other areas, the culture and climate throughout the entire system, all the schools, there were 2 high schools, 3 middle schools, a whole bunch of elementary schools, it suffered. The school board was experiencing some of these challenges. There's a whole lot of fighting within that. It was really a very unhealthy situation. And then it got amplified when COVID came along and all the things that came along with that. If there had been a culture of emotional intelligence being taught, developed, worked on, encouraged, then there is no question in my mind that that toxic environment that was driving people out, that made, quite frankly, I think was a leading cause of the stress in my wife's that led to her cancer. All of that would have been much lessened with a culture that focused on developing emotional intelligence throughout the entire system. Now, I've just kind of talked about a school system, but in any sort of organization or business, you have your customer base. Now, in the school system, it's the families that you're ultimately serving, right? It's a little bit different there because they don't really have much choice, right? They are going to go to schools in that system, the overwhelming majority. For a business, the customer's choosing to do business with you. So the experience of the customer is paramount, right? I've had 2 situations on one of the major airlines where I had to, and again, no fault of their own, weather is weather, right? But I had to spend the night in the airport. And my experience with their customer service staff was not positive whatsoever. Now, I can put myself in their position and think, oh, these poor people. It's late at night. The flights were just canceled. You got a couple hundred people who are now they're tired, they're frustrated, they're getting caught up in their own emotions, and they're coming to you. But what this airline has not been able to do, in my experience, is train their frontline people with emotional intelligence, because you could see them just bristle, defensive, antagonistic. I saw it with other service people in other lines. I experienced it in the lines that I was in. That organization is leaving people like myself with bad experiences, and that's not good. You want to really help your people where customer service is priority number 1. Another company I worked for before I got an education, L.L. Bean, has been well known for very positive customer service and customer relations. It begins with emotional intelligence, and that is something that wants to be promoted corporate-wide. The other thing emotional intelligence does is it helps us survive the storms. When we have emotional regulation ourselves, we can help build that resilience within us. And when you have more people within the organizational structure having that, they can help out other people as well. It helps you to calm that storm. So I'll go back to the airlines again, right? Those things are going to happen. And it's a lot more than just the words they need to teach the frontline people. Those frontline people need to be able to emotionally regulate themselves. I could see their stress levels rising, and they were getting caught up in the emotion. They were like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. And it communicated something completely opposite of what needs to be communicated to diffuse the situation, to manage that crisis. Because whenever that happens in like an airline, for the passengers and even the airline who now has to reschedule all these flights and again, like you think of these big storms, winter storms or whatever that can back things up, that's a crisis. And being able to manage through that is going to be, emotional intelligence will be a key factor in that. As always, when I come to the end of a video, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Like I've said in so many of these videos, it helps get the right video to the right people. That's why we're making these, and it can be hopefully very beneficial for the people who need to hear it. So again, I encourage you to subscribe, but also you might want to check out our other videos. In particular, you might want to be checking out the video, What is Emotional Intelligence in Relationships? So check that out today.